My name is Jen Brown with Yogasana Fitness, and today I'm going to talk to you about Chaturanga Dandasana. So Chaturanga Dandasana is a very common pose done in a lot of yoga classes. And the unfortunate thing about this incredible pose is that we're not there for very long. In most classes, including my own, we're only there basically for an exhalation, so not even a full breath. We inhale in one pose, exhale down to Chaturanga Dandasana, and then inhale up to upward dog and then out to downward dog. So we're just there for a brief time, unless you're in a class with a kind of crazy teacher who's making you hold it for a really long time. Generally speaking, in most classes, we're not there for that long. So for me as a teacher, that means I also can't say very much about the pose. There's just not that much time. I don't have time to go around and try and help students or correct students. I kind of just got to throw all my corrections out there as quickly as I can and see how people go. So I wanted to take this time to make this video for a lot of my students to give them some ways that they can work on the pose and try and experiment with the pose to try and build up strength and stability so that they can have better technique over time. So first of all, I'm going to show you what I think Chaturanga Dandasana should look like. So basically it's a low plank position, and low plank means that we're at elbow height from the elbows, shoulders, hips, and heels, all in a line together. And so a few things I want to point out. The feet should be perpendicular. The elbows should be at 90 degrees, and we don't want the shoulders going lower than the elbows. So the full body is at elbow height. And that's basically it. Occasionally, sometimes the bum comes up too high or low, so we want to make sure we keep the hips down. Alright, so in my classes, I usually start out from a high plank position, partly because not many of my students can hop straight back and lower down to Chaturanga Dandasana. Sometimes they kind of curve down like a little caterpillar, and we want to try to hold that strong core position as we go down. So high plank, Phalakasana, I like it because it's safe, it's doable. It encourages students to engage their core first before they start to lower. And it gives us that opportunity to talk about the alignment, like especially at the shoulders. So we got wrist, elbow, shoulder alignment. The feet are perpendicular. The legs are strong. You can suck the belly in. You can be strong in the core. And then you can take the shoulders forward as you lower down from a high plank position. All right, squeezing the elbows in, so strong in the arms, holding body tension at elbow height. These are all the things we want to try to go for in Chaturanga Dandasana. But unfortunately, not everybody can do all those things, so we need to modify it. So some of the modifications I might make, there's a lot of them. So first of all, I've got some students who I would get them to do a standing sun salutation. They should not even be on the floor for whatever reason. They're heavily pregnant or they've got other issues. We're going to do a really gentle sun salutation. So I would have them standing, and their Chaturanga basically just looks like this. They're squeezing the elbows back. They're strong in the hands, still at 90 degrees here, still trying to keep that alignment of the body and working the triceps. So I can feel it just a little bit back here, pulling the elbows back, pretending like I am on the floor. But it's a start. It's a place to begin. All right, with other students who may be a little bit stronger but still can't go down on the floor, we might do it up against a wall. So they'd be standing up against the wall at this plank type position, and then they lean into the wall, and they're still going to come down, to get the elbows close to 90 degrees. They're still going to try to bring the ribs down to the elbow height and hold here right up against the wall. So right here, now their face would be really close to the wall, and then they push away. So it's a tricep push-up at the wall. With other students who are a little bit stronger, have a little bit more mobility, might do a sun salutation with a chair. I love chair sun salutations. And so the way that might look is we hold plank first, and then they might go down just a little bit. They might be able to go down a little bit lower. But even from here, they can still come up into an upward dog position, and then they can still roll back and go into a downward dog position. So I like chair sun salutations, and it still requires a bit of strength and effort, but it still gets those triceps working and builds up a sense semblance of what the pose should look like, right? Even though we're using a chair. All right, next, you can just skip it, okay? You will not be struck down by lightning if you skip Chaturanga Dandasana in a sun salutation, okay? And if your yoga teacher gets really cranky with you, well, then just pack your mat and get out of there, okay? Because it's your body, it's your practice. You decide which poses are right for you and which ones aren't. So basically, when the whole class is stepping back into Chaturanga Dandasana, you just go to high plank. Or, by the way, you can bring your knees down. We'll get to that in a moment. But you can go to high plank, and then from there, come up into your upward facing dog, and then roll over your toes and push back to your downward facing dog. So you can just kind of skip it. You won't miss it. You'll be all right. Now, you're not going to build up the triceps as much, but you're looking out for your shoulders, and you're looking after yourself, so that's okay. All right, as I mentioned, another modification, this is probably the most common modification I encourage my students to make, is they can bring the knees down. So bringing the knees down doesn't change the plank a whole lot. So you still get, so we have shoulder, hip, heel alignment. You can still get that alignment even with the knees down. So knees up, knees down, knees up, still a plank, right? And so students with knees down, when they go down, it's still challenging, it's still hard work, but they don't have as much weight to try and lower, so it's a little bit easier. But one of the things we do want to work on, though, is building up the strength in Chaturanga Dandasana as well. The legs need to be really strong. All right, now for some other students, I might recommend they use blocks. So one of the things I like about using blocks is that it gives students something to grip, puts their wrists in a slightly different position, so they feel a little bit stronger. And then they won't go as low, because what happens in Chaturanga is when students start going low, it's like, oh, they're so close to the floor, and they just kind of want to go to the floor because the floor is nice and restful. It's a nice place to be, but we don't want to be on the floor, right? We want to be a little higher than that. So when students have blocks, and whether you're in plank or knees up or knees down, they lower down. They can still get to elbow height. They can still hold that plank position, but they're not going down as low, and they're a little more aware of where their shoulders are relative to their elbows. So they rarely, most people with blocks, rarely ever see them go lower. Most of them are about at elbow height, which is good to see. And then the other modification you can make is, so if you squeeze the elbows in close to the ribcage, that's pretty much all triceps. The triceps are really holding that body up. If you let the elbows go out a little bit, right? We don't want them going out too far, but if you let them go out just a little bit, your body will recognize that you're trying to do a push-up, and it'll integrate more muscles. So you'll get more of the pecs involved, the lats, the serratus muscles, just more muscles trying to get into that position. Biceps, trying to get into that position. Biceps not so much, but definitely they're gonna help you to try and get down there and back up. Yeah. All right. So one of the ways that you can build up strength and technique in this pose, one of my favorite variations is with a belt. So we want the belt to be shoulder width or even a little bit wider than shoulder width. And you're going to go down here, right about where your bra line would be, if you were wearing a bra. And I can't straighten the arms, or the belt will go down my elbows. So I'm going to keep the elbows a little bit bent and lower down right onto the belt. And you could totally hang out here. So I am resting on the belt. You can dance around with your feet, do a few funny other tricks, but it's still hard work, right? My arms are still working, my core is still working, legs are still working, but I can stay there for a little bit longer. So it's a great way to try and work in the pose to build up those muscles. Another way is what I like to call the block of fire. So we're going to pretend that this block is on fire and we don't want to touch it with our sternum. So when you're ready, you come on down into your plank position and you try to hover over the block, right? Try not to touch it. If you accidentally land on it, well then try to pick yourself back up. And then you accidentally land on it. Try to pick yourself back up. Yeah? So the block is usually a good height. For some people, this is the better height. It kind of depends on how high your elbows are. I think for me personally, I think that's a little bit high, but same thing. You just try to hover over that block. And then you can also work on, when you're in the pose, doing a few things with your feet so that you're hanging out there longer. Sorry. All right, so you can do some of this stuff, tapping around, that sort of thing. Now, old-fashioned stuff, using weights. So, you might practice yoga with weights. I'll show you like powerful pose, Utkatasana. So you can do some kickbacks. You might go overhead, something like that. You can also go into this sort of stance, doing kickbacks, holding there. You could also go into Virabhadrasana 3, holding there for a moment, taking the weights down, bringing them up, that sort of thing. Anyway, I think it's a fantastic pose. It's an incredibly strong pose. I'm already out of breath working on it. So I encourage you to try some of these things too. It's a good pose to get right. And because it's such an important part of the sun salutation practice, I think it's really important to get strong enough in it so that it doesn't become the crux of your sun salutation, so that your sun salutation can flow and move with ease without making that, the unappealing part of your sun salutation. So we want the pose to be light and enjoyable. All right. Thank you very much and enjoy your practice.